Our home was actually in the Bronx, New York. My dad was a motorman for the subway system, and back in the early 30s, he and his brother took a canoe trip down the Delaware, and they said, this really reminds us of Germany, so let's try to buy something up here. And sure enough, in 1933, they bought this 11-acre property from a former boarding house owner, and the plan was that they would run this as a boarding house until Dad and Uncle would retire. Now, years ago, there was an amusement park called Chihola Glen. Many boarding houses popped up to be kind of the early answer to a motel, so people could come up from the city and go to the amusement park. Well, the amusement park went out of business sometime, I think, in the 20s, but the boarding houses kept going as places to really get away from it all. People would come up here for vacations, maybe a week or 2 weeks every year, and most of them were really repeat customers, and it was really kind of a family reunion year after year. A lot of the entertainment was really homemade. People brought their accordions and their guitars, and we would have music sessions here. The big attraction, of course, too, was the river. Within 5 minutes, you had an access to a beautiful beach. Oh yeah. Thoughts of going swimming and fishing and counting the railroad cars. People used to tip the conductor, and he would stop right down here, stop the train, and the people would bring their suitcases up the hill. You could actually tell time by the passenger train. For example, my brother and I, if we were fishing or swimming down there at 12 o'clock, you could set your watch with it. The train would come by, we'd know it would be time to come up for dinner. We actually had one cow on the property, which served the guests with fresh milk. And again, the city slickers, they were amazed sometimes. They had no clue where milk came from. So we had one little guy who one day with his parents saw actually where the milk came from. And he had this horrified look on his face, and he said, I don't want the milk from there, I want it from the milkman. The porch was a favorite gathering place where people would watch lightning shows. The thunderstorms were absolutely wonderful. There are several postcards which bear witness to the fact that this place has been around for years. The earliest one was from 1907, when it belonged to a Charles Burmeister family. There was another picture from 1928, I believe, when this belonged to the George Hartman family, who sold the property to my dad and his brother. And on that picture you see the ladies with their flowing robes sitting on the embankment down here looking at the river or whatever. The main building, or in German it was called Das erste Haus, the first house. And this is the one that we did a total renovation on this back in 89 and 90. There's like an off building from the main building, which was called Die Tanzhalle, which was the dance hall. There's another building which was called Das zweite Haus. It was the second house. And this was an uninsulated 3-story building with 8 bedrooms. No plumbing until about 1954, and each room had its own little wooden closet. Another building was called, and it's still called today, the wash house, which had a cistern under it, and a pump would take the water from the cistern to these basins, at which the ladies would use their either metal washboards or glass washboards, and that was how that laundry was done. There's something hidden when the renovations were done in one of the rooms, and the contractor said, I know I'll find this. As he removed the plaster and lath, there were these 2 little baby shoes. People would put these baby shoes behind the wall as kind of a fertility guarantee. They're in there, not to be seen. This tree is a Norwegian spruce, and it was in our church in New York City in the Bronx back in 1952, I believe. And somebody was going to throw it out. My dad said, no, 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 I got a place for it. So years later, this is a tree that might find itself in Rockefeller Center. My wife and I are probably the only original family members of people who had boarding houses in this area. And when I retired back in 2005, then my wife and I moved here full time. I know it's going to be tough because there's a lot of emotional things, but there's a lot of good memories that we'll take with us, and hope somebody eventually will be able to enjoy not only the property, but the unique history of this part of the world.